From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the witching hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Johnny the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I am doing great, other than it being too hot. How about yourself?
It is too damn hot. It is too hot. I think it was 97 here today, 105 with the heat index.
Our air
It has
conditioner is not
been,
keeping up.
and our poor AC unit. I even had someone come out and look at it, and they were like, "Look, man, it's just too hot." Like the technician who came out was like, "I have 2 units, and it hasn't been able to keep up when it's been like this." So
Yeah.
it's just hot. It's humid in Virginia.
Yes.
So it's just we're
Qhht just
getting through it.
gifted 10 subs.
Holy
Qhht.
smokes. Twitch wouldn't allow me to log into Twitch this afternoon, so I can't see all the twitchiness that's happening on Twitch.
Thank you, Qhht. Holy moly. There goes Qhht making a ripple. Oh my goodness. Wow.
So thank you, Qhht, and thank you for everyone else who's coming to hang out with us tonight. We have a great show for you. We have Alyson is going to join us tonight to give us a moon phase update for August. Then we have Martin Rivera, who's going to join us in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about.
We finally get to talk about Qhht. You guys don't know how excited I am.
I know it's been something that's been on your radar for a while now. We've had lots of private discussions about it. We've looked into it.
I'm kind of obsessed with it.
You've gone down a rabbit hole with it, and tonight all of our questions could be answered. So we're looking forward to having a great conversation tonight, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Also, but first, I guess we need to get into the news. Are you ready for the news?
What kind of weird stuff this week?
All right. Well, we'll start again where we just left off. So last week we didn't have a show, so I'm going over some news articles that I had for Sage coming in. Last Monday broke the record for the hottest day ever on Earth.
No way. Where was it?
Monday was the hottest day ever globally, beating a record set the day before, that Sunday.
Oh, good Lord.
Countries around the world, from Japan to Bolivia to the United States, continue to feel the heat. According to the European Climate Change Service, provisional satellite data published by Copernicus on Wednesdays shows that Monday was 0.06 degrees Celsius or 0.1 degree Fahrenheit hotter than the day before.
So they're just saying globally, not a specific place.
Yeah, globally.
The whole planet was warmer than it's ever been. And since we've been keeping track of it.
That's correct. Climate scientists say it's plausible that it is the warmest it has been in 120,000 years because of human-caused climate change. While scientists cannot be certain that Monday was the very hottest day throughout that period, average temperatures have not been this high since long before humans developed agriculture. But it's difficult determination to make, said University of Pennsylvania climate scientist Michael Mann, because data from tree rings, corals, and ice cores don't go back that far. The temperature rise in recent decades is in line with what climate scientists projected would happen if humans kept burning fossil fuels at an increasing rate. I don't know about all of that, but I do know it's hot as hell.
Yeah, we already said that.
And the Europeans are starting to figure out that we have this heat wave every year, and it's called summertime.
And that they should have air conditioning. We were just talking about that on my stream today.
And it's just in jest to all our European friends, but we like our air conditioning.
You guys got free health.
That's a wash. The next story we have is meditation can be harmful and even make mental health problems worse.
Who says this?
Since mindfulness is something you can practice at home for free, it often sounds
like false, fake news.
Perfect tonic for stress and mental health issues.
Who wrote this?
mindfulness. It's actually Miguel Farias,
Okay.
associate
I don't
professor
know
in
him.
experimental psychology at Coventry University. So there's your source.
Mm.
Um,
Sounds like a fake thing.
Mindfulness is a type of Buddhist based meditation in which you focus on being aware of what you're sensing, thinking, and feeling in the present moment. The
Uh-huh.
first recorded evidence for this, found in India, is over 1,500 years old. Written by a community of Buddhists, described various practices and includes reports of symptoms of depression and anxiety that can occur after meditation. It also details cognitive anomalies associated with episodes of psychosis, dissociation, and depersonalization, or the sense when people feel the world is unreal. In the past 8 years, there has been a surge of scientific research in this area. These studies show that the adverse effects are not rare. A 2022 study using a sample of 953 people in the United States who meditated regularly showed that over 10% of participants experienced adverse effects, which had a significant negative impact on their everyday life and lasted for at least 1 month.
Mm.
According to a review of over 40 years of research that was published in 2020, the most common adverse effects are anxiety and depression. These are followed by psychotic or delusional symptoms, disassociation or depersonalization, and fear or terror.
I think
Research.
that depends on who you're asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're disassociating because there's a lot of stuff in this world that is not as it seems. Psychosis. Yeah, I guess if you talk
Yeah.
to any of us weird woo-woo people, you probably would think that we're all got psychosis.
Or the fact that the idea that the world isn't real.
Yeah, yeah, like
um,
yeah, for real. We figured that out already.
um,
Oh yeah.
it was just an interesting article, and they talk on here. There is evidence that mindfulness can benefit people's well-being. The problem is that mindfulness coaches, videos, apps, and books rarely warn people about the potential adverse effects. And then the question here, that I got from this article that it made me think about is it ethical to sell mindfulness without mentioning adverse effects? I mean, just like anything else, like the side effects of what could happen. I mean, I guess there's lots of people who cope with things by not addressing them and not thinking about them. And
Mhm.
when you talk about meditating, is that a possibility that people who have kind of been are all of a sudden forced to kind of deal with things?
Mhm.
That could be
That's
a
kind of what
possibility.
it's for.
Mhm.
I don't know. What's the next story? We can't talk about that one anymore.
Mysterious livestock deaths in Mexican town cause chupacabra concerns.
Oh, the chupacabras making a
We were just
return.
talking about this with Rissa Miller.
Yeah,
Her favorite was chupacabra, and we had talked about how it hadn't been in the news
hadn't been in
as
the
often.
news. Ay,
A
ay, ay.
series of mysterious livestock deaths in a Mexican town have farmers fearing that the infamous chupacabra could be to blame. According to a local media report, the strange slayings have recently unfolded in the community of Qhlt, where to date at least 9 animals have fallen victim to the unknown predator. And it's
Wow.
showing all the telltale signs. Cows, sheep, and goats have all been found with vampiric puncture wounds and have been drained of their blood.
Poor critters. Wow.
Story number 4, NASA's Perseverance Mars rover finds possible signs of ancient red planet life. This was posted to our Discord.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Maybe I was one who posted it. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Uh, I know that you and Keisha both posted some things there. Now I was trying to throw a bunch in there, but we had stuff left over from last week that we didn't get
Yeah,
to because we didn't have the show. So
let's move it forward.
NASA's Perseverance rover may have found signs of ancient life in a rock on Mars. The mission's team scientists are ecstatic but remain cautious as further analysis is needed to confirm the discovery. So we'll wait to hear more about the microbial life that could have existed on Mars billions of years ago,
Cool.
which they've been talking about for
Yeah,
decades now. It's just a
that's
matter of
a good one.
the smoking gun, I guess that eventually is going to have to be found there.
Yeah,
So that was
that's
weird news.
All right, now it's time for moon news.
Yes, moon news. The moon
Moon
news. We're going to welcome on
news.
Alyson, the Priestess of Wonderland, to give us an update. How are you doing, Alyson?
I was okay until Hoaxsters popped the balloon.
He didn't even pop it, he pooped it. Hoaxsters always good for a laugh.
which is a good segue here. If you listen to the show on podcast and you have the time for the live, it's always worth coming in and joining on the conversation because you can see Hoaxsters, I guess, poop on the balloon or whatever. You know? There's always something.
It's just
There's something always going on.
Hoaxsters typos. He
with
types
Team
too
Weird.
fast.
Team Weird is always a fun, interesting time in chat. So.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Alyson, it's our month.
I know.
August is here.
If you guys have been paying attention, I've been kind of dreading August
I know.
astrologically.
Wah, wah.
So I honestly kind of even don't know where to begin and feel like very out of my wheelhouse with how many transits that are happening this month.
Wow.
So we're just going to focus on the moon for the most part.
That sounds good.
But I do have to mention that Pluto, Neptune, Chiron, Saturn, and on the 5th, Mercury are all retrograde.
Wow.
So this is transformation, dreams, our deep wounds. Uranus is going retrograde at the end of the month, and that's like liberation and freedom. Saturn is talking about boundaries, and Mercury is talking about communication. So many things are going to be feeling stuck or slowing down, and that's just the retrogrades. There's also a lot of different transits happening this month. But that brings me to like why I focus on the moon anyways, because it's easier for me to understand and it changes signs every 2 days. So if you don't like it, just wait a day and it's going to be a different energy.
Yes.
So this week we're starting off, we've got our new moon on Sunday, our Leo new moon, and
Leo season.
And Leo season. And the Lionsgate is next week. So we have a lot of wonderful energy with Leo themes are like courage and confidence and self-esteem and being a ruler and leadership and taking charge of your life. So I think that it's going to be a really good idea to, if you do anything this month, set some intentions on Sunday and hold on to those intentions through the roller coaster that's going to be the rest of the month.
Well, that sounds good, Alyson, because I go back to work next week and I'm going to rule with an iron fist. So I need all the Leo energy I can get.
Yeah. So hold on to it. Like Cancer season taught us how to take care of ourselves. Leo is going to help us like take charge of our lives and still, I mean, think about like leadership and royalty, and no matter what happens, you still have to stand there and lead and make people feel reassured. So you have to do that for yourself this month. And with Mercury going retrograde on August 5th, and then we have the Lionsgate on the 8th. The only thing I want to say about those things is Mercury is communication. So if we are at a point where we want to be receiving things, I think it's going to be a really good idea to pay attention to be careful of like illusion and delusion. Kind of like what they were saying about meditation is like you can use it to dissociate and not pay attention to your life. So just be Mercury in Virgo is organizing things. So reading things twice, double checking, triple checking, making lists, and just really paying attention to the details. So when you're receiving information, not to be caught up in the delusion of escapism or not actually being grounded in reality. And the other big thing that's happening this month is our Aquarius full moon. And Aquarius is a sign that is the weirdo. It likes to try new things and do things differently
Isn't
and
that where we get to wave the freak flag?
wave the freak flag. And Leo is all about the self, and we have these two energies, the new moon focusing on the self, and then the full moon focusing on community. So it helps like keep yourself in check and not be too egotistical, and to care about the other people that are around you. And that brings me to, whenever we have all these retrogrades, I like to focus on the planets that aren't retrograde. And this year is Venus and Mars. So we want to focus on love, and we want to focus on action. So using love to rule your actions to move forward.
That's interesting, because a lot of the messages that have been coming through in my readings this week and last week, that's what it's been about, is like heart-centered action.
Heart-centered action. So that's really my only advice for this month, is to hold on to your Leo intentions, stay strong, stay proud, lead with your heart, and keep moving forward. And I also picked a card for this month because I was just like, it's so much going on. Can I just like wrap this up in like a nice little bow? And we got Cat's Claw. And it's got a Black Panther on there, which I thought was perfect for like Leo energy. It's not the lion with his crown on his head. It's the panther who's like sleeking around in the background and finding that light in the darkness. So the message of the card was the Black Panther, as it roams through the darkness with courage and curiosity, to assist us in accessing the hidden light of the truth. So just holding on to that light and having it be heart-centered and making our way through this month.
Nice. We had a quick question. If you could talk a little bit quickly about what is the Lion's Gate.
So the Lion's Gate is, the reason it's called that is because it happens during Leo season. But it's actually, we are coming into alignment with the star Sirius, which is, I can't remember the exact, 4 times as powerful as our sun. So it's
a very important star for us as humans throughout our whole history. Sirius.
Right. So we're kind of like, July 26th, we're kind of coming closer to it, and on August 8th we're going to be in direct alignment, and then we're going to pass it. So it's this window that happens during Leo season, and the Egyptians believed that it connects us to God or our spirituality, and being that close and in alignment with it allows you to download information. So this is a good time to meditate and to connect to your higher self.
And meditate. No.
Yeah, meditate, connect to your higher self, connect to your guides. Some believe that it can like unlock DNA within. So it's kind of like going within.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you.
So it's actually the dog star, but it's called the Lion's Gate because it happens during Leo season.
Well, we'll take dogs and cats.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alyson. It wasn't as scary as you made it sound.
Well, because I didn't talk about what's actually happening.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll go into the start of the new year ready to rule as powerfully as I can.
With your heart.
How long that lasts.
With your heart.
I didn't hear that part.
Because communication is going to be a little janky on Monday. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you communication is going to be janky on Monday. So. There ain't no doubt about it. Okay. We appreciate you, Alyson, all the time. We'll have you back. We already have it down. We're going to have you back on the first week of September.
Yep.
So the next time we see a live one here, it'll be hopefully a little bit cooler. Probably not.
Yeah, it'll be Virgo season.
Whatever. Have a wonderful evening, Priestess.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Alyson.
All right, and there's your moon update. September 5th, we're going to have Alyson back on to talk about what's coming up in Virgo season. Quick programming notes. Next week, we're going to have Dr. Mona Sabani on. We're going to talk about a neuroscientist, going to talk about that with connection in the afterlife. We're going to have Ali Cardinale on the 15th. We're going to talk about witch doctors. We got a whole lot of stuff in the works. And
But
we're coming back around. Tonight, we are going to welcome our guest, Martin Rivera. Martin Rivera is a hypnotherapist from Dolores Cannon's Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique and Past Life Regression. He is the co-founder of Quantum Balance, a healing arts center with transformational programs. Martin has certifications in quantum healing hypnosis and past lives at Dolores Cannon Academy, Arkansas. He has performed therapies and workshops of higher consciousness individually and leads groups such as pineal gland activation, connection with your higher self, meeting your guides or guardian angel, exploring past lives, accessing your book of life or Akashic records, exploring future lives, which is, wow, that's something we love to dive into. Temple of Healing at Akashic Records. Martin Rivera has translated books into Spanish, such as The Custodians and Keepers of the Garden by Dolores Cannon, Souls Speak by Julia Cannon, Finding Purpose by Dr. Holly Duckworth, and A Gift of the Stars by J.L.F. Sullivan. Please welcome to the show, Martin Rivera. How are you doing, Martin?
All right, thank you guys for having me. It's been it's gonna be it's a pleasure, and I hope we're gonna have fun tonight.
I think so.
I think we're gonna have fun. We have been kind of going down, looking at QHHT as something that medium Jenny Lee has been really interested into, and as we go to bed at night, I hear lots of stories as I'm trying to fall asleep about this video she saw about QHHT and just like the kind of rabbit holes that we go down dealing with the paranormal that we talk about on the show. So I guess that could be a very good place to start. What exactly, for people who aren't familiar, what is QHHT?
All right, QHHT, it's a method that was developed by the late Dolores Cannon she worked for over 45 years working in this field, and then she developed this technique to, it's a relaxed technique for people to go under, which say deep meditation. Talking about these news, as Jenny said, fake news.
That's fake news.
So it's a part of the mind, first of all, to relax, to relax and access to the eternal part of yourself that knows everything about yourself. So some people might call it, the higher self, the oversoul, the I am. Some metaphysical schools, they call it the I am. So it doesn't matter how we call it. Most of the time, it actually tells you, it tells you that we can work with you. And sometimes it calls itself like the source as a plural, because it could be a wide range of either your guides or ascended masters, or literally the divine, that it's intelligent and wise and knows everything about yourself and the connection to everyone. So it's the field. Some people call it the field too. So we talk about, it's literally a conversation of the two of us. Remember, it's under when people is under hypnosis. And I want to clarify this. I'm not a channeler. I'm not a medium, just like Jenny. I have such a respect, and I have friends that they do channeling and mediumship, but I'm not one of those. So because sometimes people think I'm the one I'm doing. No, everything goes, it comes through the client really when it's in that beautiful state of relaxation. So that's how, they explore those, we, quote unquote, I'm quoting, past lives or sometimes future lives. But it's always a surprise for even myself what the client's going to explore, because I'm not the one who, kind of like suggest them to go into past life. It's not like that. It's actually that part of ourselves that I was just speaking of, that takes per se control of the session and decides what's the best appropriate life, time, and space for the client to see, because that information is related into this incarnation. So it's like the history of the soul, because we all of us have that history. So in order to understand our present, we look back what actually happened in that past. So
Mm-hmm.
that way we understand now. Now I get it. Why in certain ways I had this mind pattern, these emotions, or these conflicts with all these different people, and so on, accidents, illnesses, because everything's really related.
Yeah.
So
Does it seem like the majority of hypnosis sessions do have a past life element to them?
Yeah, we could say most of it, yeah, in a great
Yeah.
percentage, yes. There's some cases, very few cases where they don't see past lives, because
Hmm.
sometimes the higher self will say it wasn't necessary because
Yeah.
we wanted to show you this. So sometimes they show you totally different, a life that is not like as we know it.
Hmm.
It could be a star, it could be a rock on the bottom of the ocean for a reason. So it's all kinds that we can see. Or sometimes they release something in their subconscious mind that either was a trauma, or those past conflicts that, our mind makes those blocks. It makes you forget, really. But down deep, that's the one who hurts you. That's the element that really, gets you in depression or being isolated. And there's so many, or whatnot, all kind of symptoms that one person can manifest. But sometimes, the higher self or source will do that, just release that subconscious part and then show you in a different aspect. So you kind of like see it from a different perspective, not from the victim mode per se, but from a wider perspective. And of
Yeah.
course, part of the technique is we require people to bring their list of questions, whatever they want to ask, that they did not understand through their life, in any stage of their lives, even dreams, even if they've been, meditating, if they see some visualizations. You can bring all those questions. Even you can ask for third parties, like, anything or anybody was related to you, even people who already passed on. You can
Hmm.
ask, or pets, that you
Yeah.
guys have pets
Yeah.
or
mhm.
dogs. You can even ask about them too. It's always a surprise, because people don't realize how this consciousness, it really plays a role in our lives. And we, as a human, we've been conditioned just to see, simple things, or certain aspects of life. But guess what? Everyone has a surprise when Source delivers these answers for them. So
Yeah.
it's very knowledgeable, really.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about that article you had to share with us. It's like all the things that you're talking about. I mean, you just said it. It's like what we experience in this three-dimensional human life is only like this tiny little fraction of
Oh
all that
my God,
it
it's
is.
so limited.
So, like this whole whatever the guy said in the article about it not being reality is like, I don't think you know what reality is, mister.
No, missing the
Anyway,
point, really.
let's not rant on that anymore.
Well, I
Frosty, you
guess
had a question?
sometimes if you stare into the abyss, it's
The abyss is
the whole
back in, yeah. You had a
I mean,
question, Frosty, and I interrupted you.
yeah. Well, I was going to say when we're looking at how the QHHT session works, how would you describe your role in that? Are you kind of a facilitator, or what role do you play in the session?
Exactly. That's more likely, yeah, we kind of like the facilitator, really, because our job is to, first of all, hear your story. It's very important for us that the client, or we don't say patient, we say the client, have a bond trust. If you don't trust whatever facilitator, you're not gonna go under. I have clients
Mhm.
sometimes, they reach me out because they live, in another part of the US, and they wanna have a session with me, but some of them they don't want to fly, whatever. So I ended up recommending them to another colleague of mine. And I remember a couple cases they were calling me back like few months later, and they were saying, what, I couldn't go under. So the first question I always said, did you trust the therapist or the facilitator? They say, not really. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to do, to trust. So when we do this interview about your life, you really have to open your mind and your heart. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you just holding back, if you have that belief of someone is gonna judge you, you're not gonna go under. If you have fear of the unknown, you're not gonna go under.
Yeah.
So it is other or people who really are in control of everything.
Hmm.
They're not gonna go under.
Yeah.
Or if you're really like analytical person that questions everything, even yourself, you're not gonna go under because you're not allowing yourself to go into that relaxed state of the mind. So, in other words, my as my 9 years of experience, I learned too that for some people they struggle to go into that state no matter what. If they trust me, sometimes they have that part of themselves in the subconscious mind, like they just I mentioned before. So in order to break those blockages, I teach them to meditate, and of course many techniques of meditation. So
Hmm.
this is, part of the study you were saying. Okay, my first question will be, what kind of meditation that the guy was using for this experiment?
Yeah.
First of all, because there are many of them.
Oh
So
yeah.
the one I use is the one that goes into your inner peace. That you're not focusing, because remember the mind is like it's a chatting all the time. It's always pending of the near future that doesn't exist, or
Hmm.
it dwells in the painful past, or
Yeah.
any conflict is always there, somehow. And then it doesn't allow you to really take a time away for yourself. So in that way, I teach them first to dwell into their inner peace, where they feel secure,
Hmm.
they trust, and of course they let go that control. Because remember, this mind, it always will put this fear as a shield. When something comes up that is unknown to them, immediately you put fear of it, and that won't allow you to go through. So that's the first requirement. You have to trust. So when we have this interview, it could be 2, 3, or 4 hours. I remember one lady I had for 8 hours. We talked
Wow.
about her life, but she opened her heart, and there were things that she never shared with any family member. So I
Wow.
appreciate that. It doesn't matter how long does it take you, because that part is very important for us. So
Hmm.
that's the first goal. You have to trust. All right. And the second part is is that part of the questions. So I help the clients to elaborate their questions, because sometimes they're like, okay, what should I ask? Or sometimes they only have like 10 questions or 7 questions, and they're like, I don't know what to ask. So, but once I heard their conflicts, their story, I was like, okay, you can ask, why did this accident happen? Why did you have this conflict with this person? What was the reason of it? What is the lesson? So those elements are very important for us, because that this way my job is like an investigator, really, because we don't know what source is going to show this person. It could be one past life, two, three. 3 weeks ago, I had a client. They showing 4 past lives. That's my first time that someone was showing 4 past lives. And one was kind of like a weird one, but we figured it out. And then right after that, we have this conversation with source, and then I bring more questions. So like, if they're showing this 1, 2, 3 pass, I have to ask, what was the reason? What did you show the client this past life? What is the purpose? Is there any person from that past life into the present life? If it's so, who is it? Per se, it's like, Kevin. And I was like, okay, so who's Kevin? So I have to know your story,
Yeah.
in order for me to ask. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like that. We play that role, and we just lead, we're leading you from time, actually from day to day in each lifetime, day to day for important day. And then sometimes you'll experience, or you'll see the death scene. Sometimes they'll just jump over to the next life. And we know, because we know sometimes they don't show it, because sometimes it's unnecessary, or sometimes it really brings something to the personal healing part of the fear of the known, because that's a
Mhm.
common element for people who are afraid of death, but they don't know. They forgot already. We've done it hundreds or thousands of
Yeah.
times. It's something very easy to do, but the condition of this culture that avoids the conversation about death, it's a
Mhm.
real basis in our culture, especially Western culture.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah,
and talking about, wanting to feel safe, I mean, just the act of going through the session, not even the information that's going to come about, but I would imagine just, you're kind of opening yourself up just by being the person who, is sitting there, laying down, whatever, like going in, you're opening kind of yourself up. So I imagine that makes a lot of sense that you have to trust the person you're with, that you can at least feel comfortable with them, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
going to say, as a medium, that's what you have to do as well. You just have to trust what you're getting. And you have to trust
exactly.
yourself to relay it. We had a question from CMC Airboss. He said, several people have had many, many past lives. Does QHHT focus on certain past lives for a particular session?
Well, that's how I explained it before. We don't know how many a past life source will present it to the person, but it's always going to be the most appropriate ones. Like I say, it could be one, it could be two, it could be three, it could be something else, really. So, but
It
anyway,
seems like it's like what the person
Mm.
needs to hear at that time.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it will tell you no less, no more that you can handle.
Hmm.
Even
Well,
though, uh-huh.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that strikes the chord, because I know even with, like you just said, Jenny, even with your clients, a lot of times they don't necessarily hear maybe what they were hoping to hear, but they tend to say that they heard what they needed to hear.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Might
so
not be what they
that seems to be
expected, but it was what was needed. Yeah.
that seems to be kind of a connection to a certain degree between QHHT and in the same, I guess, method that's coming through with mediumship and QHHT.
Yeah.
And
Because
I had a,
it's all coming from the same place. It's all
yeah.
source, it's all
Exactly.
divine,
Mhm.
whatever words you
Yes.
want to use, it's all the same thing. Yeah.
Right.
So that was another question I had, Martin, because you said that you were not a medium, and I know a lot of I think all QHHT practitioners that I know. I don't know of any who are. Is that something that is important? Can a medium become certified in QHHT?
Oh yeah.
Would there be an issue with that, or?
It could be really anyone who has the heart and the mind open. And remember, sometimes people who dwells into metaphysics and all that, or they have a background of any sort of school of
Mhm.
metaphysics of esoteric. Sometimes they made the mistake to assuming exactly the things they thought about it. And guess what? There's many surprises in QHST by source,
Mhm.
really. That's because it happens to me as well. But the most important thing is like you must become balanced with yourself. If you're still struggling with issues, emotionally, or struggling mentally too, you have to become a balanced person, becoming a
Mhm.
fulfill to know your life's purpose or your life's lesson. In that way, everything will flow. Otherwise, you're the one who needs, first of
Yeah.
all, work
Mhm.
on yourself. That's the
Hmm.
most important because I met other practitioners. They were in the middle of something, and I was like, well, why did you take the course? You really need to, to be under, do your, hypnosis, session and work on yourself until you become a better person and fulfill, or figure out what you actually came to do in this lifetime. But yeah, but
Yeah.
I
Excellent.
hope that fulfills
Well,
your
that's kind of like where my question was going, because I was curious if it might be because I imagine there's obviously a certain way that things need to be done when you're doing your QHHT session. I was wondering if it might be an issue for someone who is a medium, where they might be more liable to skip steps that maybe they weren't supposed to skip, or
exactly.
um, yeah.
Yeah, that's
No,
also
I
something
mean,
that doesn't address really.
I think a person who was going to learn how to do it would learn how to
Yeah,
do it and then follow the
do it that
steps.
way.
Yeah.
Follow that
Yeah.
Exactly.
specifically,
Yeah.
and not blur the lines there, even though
Yeah.
they're connected. It seems like there's possibly a lot of connection there too. So it's kind of interesting, I think.
Hmm. I
It's
think
been
that's
kind of
one
those
of
ideas that have come up with us with anything metaphysical and spirituality. It's like there's so many things that go parallel to each other.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you start seeing that the lines can kind of become blurred at a certain point. Or at least for me, they almost seem like they blur at a certain point.
because
Right.
it's
Well,
all the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the whole purpose is about, it's that whoever study it and, take the course of QHST, is the main goal is that you practice as Dolores Cannon did,
Mhm.
because if
Mhm.
you start, going off or cutting corners, you're not gonna
Yes.
get the result really, because everything comes
Mhm.
from the client. It's not coming from us really. So
Yeah.
in other words, like every one of us can have access to source. That's
Mm.
the key of it.
Yes.
And we all have, from history, like people like Jenny, whose mediumship, or seers, they were always helping the community. But that was back then. But now it's the time or the age that we all can have access to that source of knowledge.
Mhm. I don't know
Mhm.
how many times over the course of my years as a medium now that sometimes the main message for someone is to remember who they are and remember that
There you
that
go.
they're more than just
Yes,
who their life is right now, and that they have these skills and abilities from lives and lives and lives. And yeah, that comes up so many times.
exactly. Yes,
And
see?
QHHT is the thing that can help you unlock it.
Exactly. Unlock it.
Mhm.
Yes. And
Yeah.
guess what? One of the recommendations from source: practice meditation.
You can't go wrong if Source is telling you, guy from
Yeah.
Exactly.
wherever. So one of the things that I think that really drew me into the QHHT stuff was, as a medium, I was just learning to try to be an evidential medium, which is just talking to deceased loved ones, and that's not what happened at all. I started
No.
having all kinds of different things come up that I didn't understand why it was happening. So then when I start listening to QHHT, it's like all those same things that come up in my mediumship are coming up in these people's sessions, and
Right.
it's like it just made it feel like it all clicked, and like this is for
Exactly.
real. Like
Yes.
this is really the way it is.
And it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
yeah. I always tell people, no matter, sometimes I publish some of the sessions from clients. They authorize me,
Mhm.
even like clips or very, fragments of the session, because a session could be last from 2, 3, or 4 hours, where the client's under hypnosis. Like I said before, it could be 1, 2, 3, or 4 past lives, or future, or extraterrestrial lives.
Yee, hey.
you know Makes sense for the client, really, because that's his journey. And
Yeah.
someone else, a third party, will say, oh, that sounds so crazy, that sounds nuts. But it's not for the client, because our minds are, we always tend to classify everyone as the same. Of
Mhm.
course, down deep the level, yes, we're one, but every one of us have a different journey.
Yep,
Mhm.
and
absolutely.
that's and that's amazing. For me, it's very exciting to explore. Every time that I have a client, for me, it's very exciting, because I don't know what are they going to see, what they're going to remember or experience again.
Yeah.
And have
Mhm.
this chat with source is unbelievable. For
Mhm.
me, it was like, it blows my mind really every time.
Yeah, I can
What
imagine.
what is the most common reaction to people who go through a QHHT session and then kind of hear for the first time?
The first thing, right away, when we, I have the client under hypnosis and I wake them up, my first question is always, how long do you think you were, since we start, and now that you waking up? I say, do not think about it, just give me a number. And most of them, they will say either 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Wow. And it's
Mhm.
been hours, right?
And I show the recording. It says 2 hours ahead, 3 hours, 4 hours, and they go like, "What?"
Wow.
That's the first thing, That's the first thing that comes like this, of course. And then we have while they're waking up, fully conscious and all that, I start making, a few questions. What do you remember? Some of it, they remember parts of it. Certain scenes, especially in the lifetimes. But when I ask them, do you remember about the part when Source was speaking? They say no. Or I had only a few cases that say, okay, I heard my voice at the distance. It's like they were in this big room, and like the ego is that really the part of ourselves? It's like it was in the corner, or I felt like I was in the corner and hearing someone else, kind of like my voice at the distance.
Wow.
But the voice changes every time Source comes through. Their accent change in neutralizing, or sometimes they have this kind of like a robotic tone, you know,
Mhm.
very chopping the words, and like mechanical. It's really weird, but they do that for a purpose. But it's actually the frequency. That's a
Mhm.
different frequency that goes through yourself, really, and
Yes.
there's all this wonderful healing, and of course the information that we know that we want to come out.
Yeah. That was what I was going to ask you. So it seems like every time when the higher self starts talking, the voice changes.
Oh yeah, it's every
Wow.
time.
That's amazing. Because I do channeling as well, and I've had specific channelings where that robotic voice shows up, and it's yeah,
Okay.
and that's the way that I understood it too, was that it had to do with frequency.
Yes, it's just
Yeah.
a higher frequency. It could be,
Mhm.
could be a variant of it, but it's basically
Yeah.
it's frequency.
CMC has another question. Are QHHT practitioners certified hypnotists?
It's two different things, really. The part of hypnosis really is a branch out of hypnosis, but there's many type of hypnosis as well.
Mhm.
So we have a clinical hypnosis, which is all regular psychologists they can study of it, and then they have all these different methods too, from all these different doctors, from Dr. Brian Weiss, Michael Newton. Oh, you have Erickson method. So there are different ones, but it's it's all the other one, that the clinical one, it divides into two. The second one is like the suggestive one. That's very typical, and for us, it's like it talks. It goes into the part of the mind that is always suggestive. That
Mhm.
to lose weight is stop smoking cigarettes
Oh yeah.
and so
Mhm.
on.
Mhm.
Things like that. But it's not the same really. So that's why it's different methods about out there. And
Yeah.
before I was deep dive into QHT, of course I was studying it, which method will be more suitable, which one was more attractive to me. But when I discovered Dolores Cannon and the way that delivers, forget about the information, the healing for some, it could be instant. That
Mhm.
blew my
Mm.
mind away.
Yeah.
And of course, one of my first sessions when I was graduating, I witnessed myself the first instant healing for a person who had this, like, the eyeball was like, kind of like off an angle.
Mhm.
She didn't want to do a surgery because she was like, no, that's too risky, and she was scared about to do surgery because they had to remove the two nerves that holds the
Oh,
eyeball because
yeah,
it was,
yuck.
and they say no, no. So she did the QHT session, and we saw the healing. Once we wake the the person up, we were like very enthusiastic to see what was the result, and we saw her
Wow.
eyes totally line up like normal.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
like, move up. We were crying because we were three of us inside the room. We were crying because it happened. I
Yeah.
mean, one thing you read it in
Mhm.
Dolores Cannon book,
Yeah.
or you hear
Mhm.
her, her presentations from books and all that. But when you do it, I was like, oh my God, this is more than real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
It's
know?
like a miracle happening
Yeah.
before your eyes, to someone's eye.
And yeah, and we
That was
say
the
we
first one.
we say it so much on the show too. Like whenever we're talking about anything with spirituality and the paranormal, it's easy to dismiss until you have your personal experience. And then when you have your
Exactly.
personal experience, you know. Um, well, I kind of wanted to follow up on what CMC was talking about there, because we had on a certified hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
John Koenig, and he specialized. He had written a book about past life regressions, and he talked about. He's a believer in past life regressions. He's had his own personal experiences, but he also said that he knows that there is at least some manner of hypnotic suggestion going on. Is that something that is an issue with QHHT?
Yeah.
Because you're not really suggesting anything during it, right? Or
Conduction. Well, there's part of it. Yes. I think what we suggest you is to relax you. That's all it is.
Mhm.
Even we ask you to go into whatever beautiful place you might visit before, or you can imagine that beautiful place in nature. That's the only thing we ask you to visualize in
Mhm.
your mind. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of it, as the induction takes on, is to really set you that part of yourself to go into that beautiful state of relaxation, into ease your mind and trust and all that. And then there's many techniques or ways that we can induce the person to start going to that past life. But like I said, there's no control from us. Who really takes control of the session, it's source or higher self. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
It's
what I
a
can tell you.
bit different.
Yeah,
Um,
it's different. Yeah.
I was this is one of the things that I've been wondering about since I've been diving into this stuff so much. Um, when it comes to the healing part,
Hmm.
specifically the physical healing,
Hmm.
what do you feel like is the difference between somebody asking or praying or putting intentions into a physical healing for themselves or someone else and then having it happen in a QHHT session? Because to me, it seems like you can ask all you want
Hmm.
sometimes and it
Hmm.
doesn't happen, but then you
Right.
go have the session and like you said, sometimes it's instant. So what's the difference? What is happening?
Oh my God. Yeah. What I can tell you is the conscious mind or the ego. That belief system, it's making us, not to unlock the potential of the human being. That belief, whatever beliefs that we had, that we inherit from our parents or the culture or political, religion, or economic,
Mhm.
or the trends, you know, that really makes a blockage in ourselves. So
Mhm.
we literally like self sabotage if we want
Yeah.
to really get healed by on your own, really. But so when people goes into this kind of like I said, this kind of technique, the ego mind is out of the picture for a while.
Yeah.
Say,
Mhm.
that part
Mhm.
of yourself or the source or higher self, however you want to call it, is in charge right there. And
So
some
it's like
people,
not giving the chance for there to be a questioning of it or
Yeah.
exactly,
overthinking it or
The skepticism.
not believing it. Yeah.
Mhm.
yes, because once you conscious minds, because always wants to take over, you know,
Mhm.
because that's the job of the ego mind, to
Yeah.
protect you, to
Mhm.
survive, but not to thrive.
Mhm.
It's a
Which
whole
is like
huge.
the same Yeah, which is like the same thing that can happen with almost any spiritual practice, like when you're practicing
Mhm.
mediumship or you're doing a past life. I like we did we talked about this last night. We were on a podcast, but I was talking about my first time doing a past life regression, which is like light hypnotherapy that we did as a group. And that was one of the things I struggled with at first is you start realizing like at least in that case you weren't under like a deep hypnosis. Like I was still
Hmm.
aware of everything that was going
Right,
on.
right, yep.
And you kind of had to learn how to filter out like just let my brain be quiet for a
Hmm.
second and let what's
Right,
going to happen.
right.
And then a lot of wonderful things happen. But I imagine it was difficult for me, and I host a show about the paranormal, so I can't imagine, that how much resistance there might be to for others that actually want to know the answer. They just can't get past that gate, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. It actually happens to me as well. I couldn't get
Mhm,
on there when, it happens to my station. So I had to start practicing meditation for 3 months. And then that was the key. Like I said, go into your inner peace and give it up all this control that you have and curiosity and questioning and be analytical about it and try to make sense of it. No, you have to let
mhm,
go and trust. And of course, that's when I started seeing my own, my first experience, like as yourself, going to these
mhm,
past lives. But yeah, like I explained that before, people who have this expectation too. that's self-sabotage as well. If you're expecting to see something, that's control again. That's your
Yep.
ego mind taking control. So you have
Mhm.
to let go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And actually, that was the thing that really worried me. And I don't know if I've ever said this part of it, but like I'm really into Norse mythology. I have like grandparents that came up from Norway. And so that's a big part of like my belief system. And
Mhm.
so when we were going and Jenny was like, hey, we're going to go do this, thing, I was like, oh God, like, please don't let me see like some, Norse word. Cause then I'll know I'm just making it up in my head. Like there's no way that's going
That's
to
ego
be what it
mind.
was. And I was just like, so I was actually like really worried that I was going to see that because then I wouldn't believe it myself. But that's not what happened. I saw something that I never would have thought I ever would have seen. And so
Yeah,
that's when I was like, okay, like then now I can buy in a little bit.
exactly.
Which is kind of the opposite, I think, of what most people have. If they didn't want to see, they'd be happy. But for me, I was like, I don't want to see what I'm expecting to see.
Expectation then,
Um, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, it's very it's typical, really. I remember I had this client. She was professional chef and a bestseller of a cuisine, New York City.
Mhm,
And she came, for a session, and she was even she had some part of herself. She was kind of like a psychic ability that she has. She was able to see like the frequencies of people, like we say the auras,
Mhm.
these
mhm,
orbs and whatnot, things like that. But she didn't know what exactly they were. But um, when when she was under, they show her a lifetime extraterrestrial. And when we finished the session, she was like, I was expecting anything, any kind of past life, but no, like an ET. It's like it was like a smack,
mhm,
She had no idea, no clue whatsoever. She's like, I didn't even know they exist. I'm not even
mhm,
interested about it. And they show her, at that lifetime as an extraterrestrial, and what was the life purpose of, of whatever was, she was living into her family situation and conflicts that was exactly related to.
mhm.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Hearing
we're
exactly what she needed to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, yeah.
Not what
Mhm.
she expected, but what she needed.
What she
exactly, yeah.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
I was wondering if you had the opportunity to meet Dolores Cannon in the living.
Ah, that's a quiet story because she was gonna do a presentation in Minneapolis, I believe so, in 2014, and we were already, kind of like booking the airplane tickets and the hotel, and somehow my wife goes like, okay, what, let's do it, tomorrow. And then the next day we heard the news that she fell, she had an accident,
Mhm.
and they had to cancel, the presentation. So we just waited out, and then 3 months later she passed on.
Wow.
And
Mhm,
already, and then that I was part of the first per se generation that took
Mhm.
the course without her.
Yeah.
So it was kind of special first, 'cause she wasn't there, and Julia kind of she's the one who's directing everything, and she got
Mhm.
other two wonderful teachers, Susan Spooner and Diane Morrison. And then months later, I had a client where Dolores came through and delivered me a personal message. So I was
Oh,
very moved.
that's
So because
wonderful.
I was,
oh, wow.
yeah, because I was expecting to see her,
Yeah. That's what
Then
I was gonna ask next because it seems like she comes through in these sessions, like,
yeah,
not all the time, but,
all the time.
regularly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for some of us, yeah. So it was very briefly, but she delivers the message, and I was like so grateful, and I was so moved.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just tears. I had my tears down my cheeks.
Yeah.
When I heard that. So I was beautiful. But yeah,
That's
that's the
awesome.
story.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
thank you. So
So let's get into some weird stuff because that's what we like around here.
do it.
Wanna
Um,
get weird?
what's one of the weirdest lives that you've seen show up for somebody that was just like, what in the world? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Okay. Yes, there has been many, but
Hmm.
I'll share one with you guys. Uh this lady. She didn't see any past life. The first scene that she saw, she started describing me this like she was describing a cube in movement, like it was like spinning, you know, and she's like looking above, from this huge cube, and it was in the universe. It was like just dark place, but she was able to see stars at a distance. But this huge cube, it was like rotating, and then I tried to make sense of it, and I tried to, because our part is to make questions without suggesting, all right, without interpreting or anything. We had to allow the client to do the narrative and all that. So she started, speaking on her tone of voice, like I said, when she was describing this cube. It was bright, kind of like a gray, and then showed different colors, and it's moving back and forth. And she realized it's like huge cube because somehow she was seeing it, like I said, from above. But then she changed her voice changed dramatically. She goes like from a sweet lady into like a very dark, deep voice. I am the cube.
Wow.
I was like, oh my god! So I immediately know that's part of the source. So okay, so what is the? So I started making this question. So what is the function of this cube? And he goes, oh, this is a kind. He goes like, well, it's gonna be hard to understand. And I go like, okay, could you please explain me in an easy, simple way as a human that I am, so I can understand it? And they go, yes, okay. And they go, okay, so this cube is the engine that creates the energy for the universe. I was like, okay,
Wow.
here we go.
Yeah.
So I started, that's my job to make.
You wanted to know, Martin. You wanted to know.
Yeah, the first requirement to be a good practitioner, you had to be curious about and make questions. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we came go along with the session, my following question was, how do we benefit from that energy? And he goes like, well, everything that you consider planets, stars, everything that you see in the sky, or in every other matter that you consider that you might not see, it benefits from it. And I was like, okay, so how can you explain, or how can you tell me, um, how we as humans can we benefit from it? And he started telling me about these different parts of the planet. The energy flows more strongly in certain points of the planet. Some people call it the chakras of the planet, or some these knots, or these like a network that is embedded in the earth, that
Mhm.
flows, that brings that universal energy and inwards and outwards from
Yeah.
the
Like ley
own
lines?
planet.
Like ley
Yeah,
lines?
exactly,
Yeah.
the ley lines, exactly. And
Mhm.
then I start, telling, can you tell me what some of these ley lines or these energy points on the planet? And then they start telling me about in Asia, in India, and then we move into the continent. I was like, can you tell me any, nearby where we are? We are in the U.S. And he goes, oh, Mount Shasta, but there's other ones, smaller ones too. There's some are bigger, so some are smaller. And of course, she told me it's a part of New Jersey, and a park that we know is called Jenny Jump State Park in New Jersey. There's like these monoliths that we know the Native Americans, they used to do like ceremonial
Mhm.
things, and they consider it sacred. These huge rocks, some monoliths, and that energy flows there too. I was like,
Wow.
oh, okay, So yeah, so things like that, weird stuff happens. So
Yeah. That's really interesting because we have a couple of people in our community that I end up doing readings for on a regular basis that are very connected to the angel Metatron, which is the Metatron's cube. And that's what he always talks about with certain people, is this cube and what it does. And it's basically the same thing. It's those ley lines on
Wow.
the earth. So the fact that there's a huge one somewhere that's like generating all the energy, that's fascinating.
it is,
Yeah.
Some point, yes, I
Wow.
knew the background that you just spoke about, but the
Mhm.
client had no clue
Yeah.
whatsoever. That's the
Well,
beauty of the thing. They don't know anything about
Yeah.
it. Of course, it was related to her, somehow, because that was one of my questions. What did you show her this cube when we continue to speak with Source? And of course, it lays out the answer. It was because she's part of that cube, because she had this energy that she can heal people. And you know what?
Wow.
She was a dentist. She was a
Oh my
professional
goodness.
dentist, and she got many physical issues that she went to to checkouts and test from arthritis and whatnot, and all the tests were negative. So that's why
Mm.
she approached to
mm,
hypnosis to see what's going on or what's beyond that. And that was the true revelation, because they say her what she considered arthritis, not arthritis, is because she's engaged with this energy and she's
Yeah.
not spreading it, she's not
Blood
sharing it.
flowing. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a
mm,
repercussion for her, because
like a
she feels
blockage.
limited.
Mm.
She
Yeah.
must spread it, she must share it with people to connect it with the cube or with source.
Yeah. Well, she must be a hell of a dentist. And Keisha said, is she taking new clients? We
So
had
That's
we had
that's
a
very interesting too, because when you talk about the cube and like this, essentially like this universal engine, it makes me wonder about the science of it too, because like we supposedly can trace things back to a big bang, but then they don't know. Scientists say that it couldn't just have appeared because energy isn't created, and energy can't dissipate, like it has to exist. So yeah, it's like the idea that we can go to the big bang, but there it's interesting because there could be, like, you start thinking about something like a cube like that could be something that is what's powering all of these things that we know about in the universe, which is absolutely fascinating, especially if you have them attached to planets, like, yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
my mind's going with all the micro, macro, and all how it's all the same. But we have a question from
Oh,
Mr.
yeah. Mhm.
Savage. He said, "Do you see similarities with QHHT and Dreamtime healing using holographic kinetics?" If you know what that is, I don't
oh
know what
my
that
god.
is.
Yes, I know it is. This is a synchronicity, because in my healing process, I have a colleague in mine. She's from Australia. She lives down there. She's like an Asian background too. She practiced QHT and holographic kinetic, and she
Mm.
done sessions on me with holographic Dreamtime
Oh
kinetic.
wow, cool.
It blew my mind, really. It's very intense, I could say. It was
Mm.
I had two sessions, like one day next to the other, for like an hour and 45 minutes session, really. But they're very intense. I was crying my eyes out.
Oh
I
my
had, like,
goodness.
healing, emotionally healing, from other past lives, really. And
Mm.
I could see the pattern of it, you know but it's a different technique, really.
Mhm.
It involves something else that I don't want to speak about it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, but dwells into past lives as well, and you see those
Mhm.
patterns, how they were embedded into, that you somehow connected, and keep repeating these minds or emotions into your present life. And it was intense, like I tell you. I was the first one out of a dozen people who went to this retreat in Mount Shasta for like a whole week. And then it was totally worth it. It was like 180 degrees, healing power. Of course, I did the QHT, of course, on myself, and plus all these modalities that I just mentioned. But yeah, it was really intense, but it
Wow.
was worth it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I never heard of that before. Let's see. He has a follow-up thing here. Brisbane based. It saved my life and all the interdimensional interference. Hmm.
Was Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's
very
right. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it's another technique. It's actually it derives from the Aboriginal people of Australia, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Neat.
yeah. So they use
Yeah.
this, frequency, ancient frequency from them, and you go, like I said, this interdimensional. Yes, he described it really well. So
Wow.
Mm.
Pretty
And
neat.
and once again, like you said, synchronicity, but we're seeing that we were talking about the connections between QHHT and mediumship, and that achieving the same things through different
Mhm.
methods. And once again, another people group on the earth that developed another technique to do kind of the same thing, but just through a different method.
Yes,
Which is
exactly.
always it's just always fascinating. It's like at
Indeed.
some point in time, it seems like all ancient humans knew how to access these things, and they might have done it through different ways.
Yes.
And then, I
Right.
don't know, it's like a
It's all
forgetting
got
or something.
lost.
We had to rediscover all of this again.
Especially the
Yeah.
indigenous people of, for any culture, really. If we go to Europe, we got the Druids
Mhm.
and all this ancient knowledge they had from herbs and metaphysical stuff, really, sacred geometry. And we go into this, Latin American continent, we still have that knowledge from
Mhm.
indigenous tribes, or the
Mhm.
shamans that or the seers, like I said before.
Mhm.
So yeah, they had this knowledge that were connected to Mother Earth and all these connections, even not even even beyond this earth, having contact with other ET races as well.
Yeah. Yeah, somehow it all got lost, but I'm glad we're figuring it out again.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I got so many different topics we could
Yeah, I
talk
have some.
about
I'm letting
here.
you go though, because I know you got like months of questions. So I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, let's go with another weirdness to the the different path here. What I'm interested to know, what if because I know sometimes maybe this information doesn't come up, but the ones that you're aware of, what kinds of ET lives have people had?
All kind, really.
Yeah.
Some of them are um, physical as we are, but not that dense as we are as our bodies. Some of the ETs, they don't have mouth, they don't eat. They really sustain their whatever they consider their bodies or their light bodies by the energy source. Some of them are more very similar to ours, but they're
Mhm.
very psychically or they're very mentally that they don't speak any language. They just they use telepathy for anything. Um, I got this weird one so far. This lady was the life in this planet. It had no form. It looks like a blob, formless, like I don't know, kind of like a plasma thing,
Mhm.
but it was intelligent because she was telling me that she was taking care of the environment and it was a planet very similar to Earth. It had water, lakes, trees, different kind of animals, but she was the one who was regenerating the water and taking care of everything. Has to be in order and heal. So she was constantly doing that, but he wasn't the only one. She told me there were other ones as as non-gender. We can as it because
Yeah.
it wasn't she or he.
Mhm.
So there's no gender. So that was one of the weird ones that and when I walked the person actually weeks later, I trying to I call her and I ask her like, can you describe more? Because when people are under, sometimes they only describe whatever they can see, whatever they can make out. But then when you wake up, like you fully conscious and you hear you recording, and it's like a download of whatever
Mhm.
you experience, and more details comes, along. So she was describing the best she can, and that's how she came up with like something, with no form, like a blob, and just moves slowly, like a plasma thing,
But it
and
still had all this life in it. Yeah,
exact and intelligence too.
that's
I'm
amazing.
curious too. One thing that hit me about that is the idea, like, don't we consider like that most of the angels that people connect with are like earth based? Isn't that been something that we've gotten messages about?
In my experience, that's a good question for Martin, who's had maybe a
Yeah.
different experience.
Well, yeah. Well, let's go with that, and then I'll take it a step further. And if that's the case, could we see other kinds of what we consider extraterrestrials that might be angels for the planet that they're based on?
Is it, you know what, everything's connected really. And for some, now here's the other thing that I want to throw, to I want you guys hear it. All right. um it has happened in sessions that some people come up, it's, at least twice already. People who describe me, they were seeing shadows in the corner of the eyes inside their house, and the question was like, what exactly was? I mean, they didn't feel fear or anything negative about it, but they say, oh, okay, I always, for time period or stages of the life, they see these dark figures, going on. And like I said, it's been twice with two different clients. They don't know each other. And when I asked the source what it exactly was, and they say, oh, those were like light beings, they were their guides. And I was like, but why she sees them like in like a dark? And he goes like, oh, because she's operating in fear, so her frequency is lower. That's why her mind interpret this way, because the mind doesn't know. And when the mind doesn't have that background of visuals, immediately the mind interprets in that way, but it's not exactly like that. So I was
Makes a
like,
lot of sense.
oh, okay. And then, of course, that was the answer. But I had another one that was relating to the second question of Jeremy. And I had this client that she had a question because she remembered when she was a child, she had this uh, kid friend that nobody sees it, but only her.
Yeah.
And she described me this kid like was very friendly and used to have this conversation with him, but this child used to somehow makes her feel safe and give her like company to it and advices, but that was only lasted for like few years, like between 4 and 6, and then somehow disappeared, right? But guess what, she had a child as well, because she's already a grown-up lady. And his son already was 18, 19-year old. But she remembers when his child was between the same age, between 4 6, he experienced the same thing. She saw him talking to himself or talking to someone that she wasn't able to see. So that was the question. And then
Mhm.
the surprise answer from Sora was like, uh-uh, that child is not a child, it's an entity. And we're like, what kind of entity? It was like, that's how you consider like the extraterrestrial.
Oh.
Okay. And I was like, so is that's how the way it is, that kind of like a child? He goes, no, that's the way she it actually was a female. She wanted to see them so she can approach more gentle to them.
Mhm.
And it's the same one, from the mother to her child. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, so my following question was like, okay, how is related to them? Here's the beautiful answer. It's because they were part of that ET family in another star system.
Wow.
So this one is always coming along to supervise them, to help them along the way on their human experience.
That's amazing.
So they could
Yeah.
consider it to be like a guardian angel,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
they saw it in the human form, but that wasn't her
Mhm.
form. And I asked, okay, so what is the actually form? And he goes like, okay, it's actually she's here. I was like, okay, so we just we salute you, and we thank you for for the protection from them. And it was like she's very grateful, and she's like covering herself. I was like, why she's covering herself? Because she don't want to see her kind of like a naked body, you know. And how does it look like? It goes like, okay, that's how you interpret like the gray kind of ETs, but she's not a gray.
Mm.
She has a different tone, like more a grayish, olive color on her skin, and but she's very wise and she's very tender and caring and all that. So I was like, oh, we really thank you for this opportunity to introduce. Even she mentioned the name of it because I asked it. And then that was the answer. So there you go.
Yeah.
Surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's all kind, really, Jeremy, all kinds of from guides. Actually, what I find out when they say guides, it's actually a relative or a soul who had, a lifetime as a human on Earth, right?
Mhm.
But if it's like a guardian angel, they're not really necessarily had an incarnation on Earth. So
Mm.
that's kind of like the slightly different between them. But they say there's no hierarchies. It's not important one to another. It's more the guys are more. It could be like your grandmother who already passed on, or your
Mhm.
uncle. It becomes like your guy later on. Or sometimes it could be the grandmother. You never met her, but somehow she's
Mhm.
tied to the family. So
Yeah.
she's the one who's presented on dreams or in a meditation or this paranormal event that happened. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a very thin line between the paranormal and the ET phenomena, really.
That's something that we get a lot in our community is ancestors that come
Mhm.
through
Right.
that the person doesn't know about.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, they never met them. Maybe not
Right.
even. Maybe the name wasn't even necessarily passed down to them, but they're there nonetheless. Do you
Right.
find that also in your QHHT sessions?
Yes, ancestors. Yes, indeed. I had this was another really weird one because the lady described me for many years. She had these dreams with this giant. She described it as like this, kind of like you know Native American or indigenous tribe where they had this robust body, like very like a bodybuilder, But the way she describes, she's a giant, like a 9, 10 foot taller, right?
Mhm.
Very dark skin, very strong with feathers, with headdress, And then she feels it like a relative, but she doesn't know how to make up, but she always felt protected by him. So when in the session was her second past life, they show it to her. They saw this past life as a. It looks like a indigenous tribe from the Americas, and she started describing these people like tall as trees, many of them, you know. So by the time they ended up in this like this tsunami that just washed over the civilization because they had
Mm.
buildings as well. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, So by the time I called the higher shell, I started, asking, what kind of light was that? Where was it, and who these people and this, especially this, because he saw the same person from that dream. He saw it again, and he goes, that was his father from that civilization. And
Mm.
I was like, were they giants? They were saying, yes, they were giants. I was like, how
Yeah.
tall they are? And that's something goes funny like that because it was like, oh, it's very hard to translate. I was like, can you tell me in feet or meters? And they go like, oh, it's hard to translate in your measurements. But okay, so I was like, okay, can you tell me a comparison between a small or medium or tall tree? And he goes, it's a very tall tree,
Wow.
the size of those giants. And I was like, okay, so can you tell me the the part of the country that we know so far now, where that civilization thrived? And he goes, that was in Mexico. I was like, okay, so how long was it? And I was like, it was like in silence for a couple seconds. So for us, like 5, 7 seconds in silence, like too long,
Yeah.
pushing, So can you tell me it was like, when the Egyptians were, building the pyramids, or the Sumerians? And he goes like, no, it's way back, more and more. And then he goes, okay, what about Atlantis or Lemuria? He goes, yes, exactly. When those civilizations were thriving, this civilization was thriving too.
Mm.
I was
Mhm.
like, wow. So, but yeah, that was her father from that civilization. She was still connected to him.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and the connection between that and the Great Flood, it sounds like,
Yeah.
possibly,
Exactly, the destruction
and,
of Lemuria and Atlantis. So it
mhm.
washed them too. It washed them away.
Yeah. We love giant stories, so that's pretty
Mhm.
cool.
See, and the lady, she was from South America, so she had no connection or any
Yeah.
relative from Mexico. The
Mhm.
beauty of it. So I even have no idea there were giants. I started doing my own research, and I found a mythology that talks about these giants, but I never knew before.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of
Yeah.
giant mythologies from all over the world,
Yeah.
and what happened to them all? Well, I guess, maybe that makes
Well,
sense. Flood.
and you have those stories where, like where essentially all cultures had a flood myth,
Yep.
and almost all cultures have giants that existed before the flood.
hmm
So
Yeah.
it's like its whole topic.
Yeah. It's a topic.
That crosses oceans. That just
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about DNA a lot lately, and like DNA memory and DNA holding these ancestral things. How do you feel like that ties into all the other things that have to do with the soul?
All right, that's part of the development of the soul when it's incarnating into this physical body. Some people, they had more experience or knowledge about it, and of course, you have to activate, that genetic part of the lineage that you're coming from. But it doesn't necessarily has to be all the time with the same lineage. It means about from frequencies, really. Let's say, per se, Jenny might have a past life, maybe in ancient Asia, right? But she already was, a seer back then, right? And then now she's, Caucasian, live in the US and had another background. So sometimes people try to tend to tie it up only for the race background per se.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily. It has to be with frequency.
Yeah.
Because that other client was like a monk in the medieval times, since he was psychically. But then she had another past life as a shaman in the ancient Mayan civilization.
Yeah.
There's no types of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just the frequency that this soul was achieving into this physical body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes with everyone everyone on the planet. So it's actually the lessons that you are willing to take, to experience,
Mhm.
and to learn to grow. It's up to you in whatever incarnation you are. Sometimes we could say, but because it's always a plan. Before we come into this incarnation, we have a plan from the soul, right?
Mhm.
To
Yeah.
achieve certain experiences, certain lessons. But guess what? Some people, they already achieve it. It's only
Mhm.
few, but then they want to achieve more. So kind of like they kind of like advance the course per se.
Yeah.
So they becoming more. Of course, it comes along with responsibilities too, you
Mhm.
know. But as well, you are prepared for it because either you have really challenges, experiences in another lifetimes that takes you forward, and to dwell or to understand all these kind of things that we consider paranormal or metaphysical
Mhm.
or whatnot. And then and somehow you make sense of it, you feel related to it, and other people they don't.
Yeah.
Guess what? I find out that there's all kind of souls too. There's some fresh souls that just coming into the planet, or they only have few lifetimes in the planet, and there's other ones that are very ancient ones.
Mhm.
You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be very wise. No, sometimes they just keep repeating the same course over and over.
Yeah. Mhm. They didn't learn the lesson the first 10
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
That's one of the things I was getting ready to ask, actually, was how many lives does it seem that most people have lived? So I'm taking it that it's different depending on the person. But
It's different, but before as any one of us assigned to experience this, whatever that offers this planet and this body as a human into this planet, all of us, we already have all the lifetimes in another planets, galaxies, or even universes, hundreds of thousands of them, because we are part of source. The soul is really part of that extension, what we call God, or the unconditional love, or the field, however you want to call it. We are the extension of that God, and it's
Yeah.
it's limitless times. There's no time of it, like as we conceive it. So the eternal, that's why we say the eternal part of you. That's why some people, they experience during the session, they see these lifetimes as an 80.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we
Yeah,
hope.
humans have only been around for so long.
Oof.
Those souls had to be somewhere else.
Well, they're everywhere. It's
Yeah.
everything's connected.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Let's talk about future lives. What kind of
That's what I was
future
gonna bring
lives
up.
have you seen come through?
Okay, the future lives. I'm gonna give you very simple, examples from the simple ones to the more complex. Okay. The simple one was like, this is very linear, so everyone else can understand. Okay, here's a session where this client was experienced a past life. See how is everything is related. So that's why I want to do this context. Um, he was actually between the border of France and Germany during the glacier era, coming out of the glacier era. So he was the head of this clan, of this tribe, about 50 people. So he was one of the leaders of it. But then, as we explored a lifetime, we tried to guide him into to the death scene, but somehow he jumped into this future life right away. And then he started describing he's in this spacecraft, and he's a younger guy, 28-year-old, and he's the chief engineer, chief cargo engineer, yes. And then he described me this aircraft that holds 1,500 people in it. And he was so proud of it, because he started telling me that, it's part of the human effort to start colonizing Mars.
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
okay, so what year are you? Because like 2150. So it's not that long,
That's
so
not that
almost
long.
100 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had, he told me more details why they were doing that. I started making these questions. Human beings are already established. They said yes, they're on the ground basis, and more details. And then and here's the question to her yourself: why did you show him, first of all, the first past life, as a tribe leader, and then the future life? And he goes, he says the wisest answers is because the client was a male, because he thinks that was the only life he's gonna have right now. That's why we show him first the past life, because it's very important, because he was working in customer what do you call service, customer service.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's not important, but he is. That's why we show him as the leader of this clan, because every time he smiles, he changed people's reality into their everyday life. That's why
Wow.
he's important to us. He's important to us, and he's important to the community. And now we show him that future life, because that's their timeline based on his beliefs. He's going to explore based on his beliefs. That's his timeline of him. See? So he's showing that there's more life to it. And there's a future, a promising future. And this is very important when say that's his timeline. This is very important, because not
yeah.
all of us, we're gonna experience the same timelines as Jenny, as Jeremy, as myself. No, we might, experience right now, that we connect to each other, but then your next adventure, it could be so different from each one of us. It
Yeah.
depends on your state of evolution, depends on your belief system as well, because you have a free will.
Yeah.
So when we're getting information about past lives and future lives, the information that we're getting through the QHHT sessions could possibly be happening on different timelines.
Yes, many, many timelines. And we could say in two different. Okay, I'm going to explain this because this is very complex. And then it's basically for planet Earth, it's basically like two of them. They call it the old earth that we still see in all these conflicts, the political system, the economic system, and so on. But then this is, we call it the new, or Dolores kind of label it as a new earth. When you rise above that and you change that perception and you see the beauty of it too, and where there's really not that conflict that others are experiencing. It's like more you raising your frequency, but you work on yourself. Once you work on yourself, you change the whole perspective of the world. So that's another frequency, really.
Yeah.
One can access to it once you drop those old belief systems of the old earth and all those conflicts. That is your merely projection of yourself. I had that answer many times because I had, people who feel the victim. I even myself, I feel the victim of my own experience. Even when they were mistreated as a child, or they were betrayed by different partners and so on. And you feel the victim all the time. And guess what? The answer is no, because that was her or his projection. Because those are her lessons. So once you understand why did you experience this, that's your empowerment. And they say, so if you don't like that, you have to change. They're not gonna change. The world's not gonna change. You're gonna change, and immediately the whole world changes because the answer is within yourself. Isn't that clever?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is a message I feel that's been coming across for several years now. Definitely, the 3 years that we've been doing this show, and even before, when I first started hearing about kind of the new age, that humanity, the consciousness was shifting for many on planet Earth, and that there was a change coming, and like now is a very important time. I've heard that message multiple times now,
Right.
and we talk about it quite often, and it sounds like the information you're getting lines up exactly with that. Yeah.
Yes, and many people already there in that world, even ancient civilizations, some groups from different parts of the planets, they already, are living in there, and they have awareness of us. Really, it's like I always tell this, analogy for people. Think about the earth and the densities. I don't say dimensions. Might say a little different.
Mhm.
Could be a little difference. I say like densities of
Mhm.
frequency more higher. Is think about like a building. We are the first level, and the floors, the second, third. There could be different densities where people they not necessarily have these the same conflicts as we live in. Of course, there's gonna be challenges, of course, but it's gonna be different ones, a more light level, because they achieve already a higher awareness of consciousness. But they are able to see the first floor, but we are the ones who are on the first floor. Many of us cannot see the second one. They don't
Yeah.
even know there exists a second floor.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
Yeah.
certain individuals, as Jenny medium, might tap more easy to see this higher frequency that we call it the new earth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's something I got familiar with through Jenny and when you were reading the Raw Contact, which
Yes.
is, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Martin, but like
No,
the
I haven't read it yet. No, but I heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, like a being that was being channeled that was a higher density,
Right.
and so I can we use those terms? Are they interchangeable? Density, Jenny. Do you are we talking about different things there?
I think that they're interchangeable. Do you agree, Martin?
Yes, I agree. We,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
tap into it. It once you fulfill those circumstances or requirements. Yes, as people, like I said, in during QHT, they might tap into it. Yes, because
So
everything's gonna.
here's a question for you about this whole shift into the new earth, because even for myself, getting information from different sources and from source or from spirit or whoever,
Right.
it
Yes.
seems like there's different information that comes through. And
Right.
then through QHHT sessions that I've listened to, it seems like there's different information that comes through. Is
Mhm.
there a general idea of how this is occurring, or do you also have like different ways that people explain it happening?
You mean the transformation,
Yes.
into this dimension? Yes, it's the perception. Sometimes source show them based on what they can understand.
Okay.
So it's like customized, it's for you to understand this concept.
Yeah, that
You know
makes
what I mean?
sense. Mm-hmm.
So, because it might, for other people or other explanation, that might sound more complex, but actually, every time the source speaks, it's the most simple way that the client can understand. Like even as I mentioned before, because sometimes I had to answer like, "You would understand it." I was like, "Okay, please, can you explain me as a
Yeah.
human in a
Yeah.
human way that we can understand
It's
it?"
my limited human
Yeah.
existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they know, and they say, okay, and they try to give you, even though they say, okay, but there's more,
Mm-hmm.
of course,
Yeah.
there's more, and little by little, I understand more and more. Of course, the answers could be more broader. Sometimes they deliver messages not for the client, it's actually for the practitioner, for their understanding sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you speak freely any other topic that you didn't even
Mhm.
ask about.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, okay. And it's like they throw you pieces like a puzzle for you,
Yeah.
for your own growth, for your understanding too, even though it's not related to the client. They do that
Mm,
sometimes.
that's
So
interesting.
keep
So
you
yeah,
really.
that makes sense then. So for you and what you in what you do, when that different information comes up, it's for the person who's under hypnosis to understand it in their way.
Right,
And for me, when I'm doing it, when I get different information, it's for the sitter that I'm reading for to be able to
right.
understand it in their way. That makes so much sense.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
some people get confused, if you don't
Mhm.
have a background, like as I mentioned before, you don't have that background, it sounds crazy,
Yeah.
sounds nonsense, but it doesn't, but it makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Follow it. So, and there's other people who understand it too. They're only few, but they are
Hmm.
there. So,
Yeah.
does it make sense?
Yes, it makes so much sense now. And I guess I know that, and I knew it about pretty much everything else. Like I know that when that spirit will show up in a certain way to
Hmm.
for the person or for
Right,
us to understand something about the
right.
message. So why wouldn't that be the same thing about this shift
Right.
information
Yes.
coming through in different ways too? Yeah.
It's just the same way the example I mentioned about the cube. You understand the Metatron
Hmm.
cube. This is just simple. It's just a cube or Merkaba.
Yeah.
That's how I
Mhm.
describe
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
Okay. They didn't
Different
say
words for the
Metatron.
same thing.
Other people, yeah, other people will use, it's a Metatron. Oh, this and that. It sounds more esoteric. And that's how I've seen it, that source doesn't go into the field. It goes more in the simple ways,
Yeah.
for us to understand, because that's the goal.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Frosty, do you have more questions? Because I feel like I'm hogged all the questions.
Oh, well, you can keep going. I
Okay.
wanted to go back a little bit to the ley lines and kind of some of we were talking about the cube again. We were talking about Mount Shasta and some other. What
Mhm.
are there any interesting things that have come about that kind of go over some of these ancient mystical places that we know about on Earth, like the pyramids or Stonehenge or any of the old ruins and temples we have
Mhm.
in the Americas? Is there anything interesting that you've come to learn about those?
Oh my God, there's so much. There's so many information that is, again, depends on the level of the understanding. It could
Mhm,
be from tapping into that energy, having communication with other beings. We could say
mhm,
beings from the astral plane, or could be another ET race that is connected to you, or to Jenny, to Jeremy. It could be, or again, downloading or upgrading a DNA, as you guys mentioned at the beginning of the show. It could be upgrading. It's infinite. I could say infinite knowledge,
mhm.
like one can benefit to be in places or visiting places like those. Some people might have recall or somehow activate some of the psych abilities. Some might have people
Yeah,
have recall having those past lives that is very healing. It could be, liberating. Could be, oh my God, could activate those light codes that are there, information that is in the subconscious level. It doesn't necessarily you have to understand it. coherently. Sometimes there's symbols, or they say like quotes, and explain what is the purpose of it. Some people I heard, so other mediums, they're trying to make, they speak in like weird languages. It
Mhm.
doesn't make sense, but they say, some people try to interpret the frequency because it's only frequency. It doesn't necessarily you have to understand. It's like, they give me this
Mm-hmm.
analogy. It's like, think about the computer when they have a new program. You see these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and letters that doesn't make sense. It's only designed for this special application, and you don't have
Yeah.
to understand it, how does it work, but it's for that purpose. you know
Mm-hmm.
so, but it could be many things that could happen in those ley lines. It could enhance the intention. If a group of people or meditators with goodwill from the heart, they engage to the betterment of humankind, or improve the timeline that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that could enhance the energy. It could be a communion with other beings. Like I said, they are guiding us to do that sometimes. For other people who channel, they sometimes they do that. It's actually for, like I said, many things. Really, we could go on and on from different experiences, and other um, things that we might not understand it, but it's happening. you know
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
That
sense.
that just made me want to go travel to as many as possible. You said there's one in New Jersey. That's not too far.
Yeah,
Let's go
yeah, there we
across.
go.
Yes, New
Well,
Jersey.
I want to
Yes.
say real quick for everyone in chat, we have about, well, let's say about 13 minutes till the top of the hour. For everyone who's listening later, in another time, in another place, um, you're always welcome to join chat with Team Weird every Thursday. We go live here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you've been listening weekly to our shows as we post them, you're already an honorary member of Team Weird, but you can always come join Team Weird in the chat and be able to ask questions.
Mhm.
So if anyone in chat has any questions, now is the time. If you haven't got it in there already, to feel free to throw them in there as we start to wind towards 10 o'clock. Feel free to throw those in there. I did want to ask you, I
Mhm.
guess, Martin, we have the link for Quantum Balance, the website there.
Yeah,
We
so
have, yeah, we have the link hopefully in chat, the Quantum
Yep,
Balance.center.
we do.
Can you tell us, we know you do QHHT there, but I think there's much, so would you like to tell our listeners what else is happening on over there?
Oh, actually, like you mentioned before at the beginning when you guys, presented me about these workshops, individual or in groups. Some that could be over Zoom. I do that too. And as you described first, one of my goals is like for people to start, activate that part of themselves that could be, beneficial to them, that we call the pineal gland activation, because every one of us can have access to that higher consciousness, as I label it, per se a name, to higher consciousness information that could benefit, in many levels, and it had many beneficials, even as you describe it, in all these different workshops, and then I had another that's more one-to-one. I call it the emotional release therapy. That's kind of like a therapy and a course. And that way we teach you how this mind works, the ego mind, when people are struggling and having depression, anxiety, and and have unresolved conflicts or cycles, they don't know how to end it, or they have these patterns of conflicts with people, very common, they don't know why the universe throws these people with the same lesson, they cannot overcome.
Mhm.
They think, somehow they've been punished, but it's not. It's your own projection. So it goes very hand to hand with the information with QHST. But in that way, it's like I provide the information how, first of all, that you understand how this mind works, these emotions, and this belief system that you have been absorbed or embedded in yourself. And basically, we all of us are like blind,
Mhm.
acting in life, always in the survival mode, and fighting and defending yourself, but when you start understanding that part of yourself, that it only makes you survive but not thrive, then you see beyond that, and then we provide you with information, or what we call it the unity of consciousness, that you're no longer judging, you become an observer. We teach you how to step back for yourself and observe even your own patterns, and we guide you through forgiveness of yourself and others, through education from the heart, not from the mind, but truly from the heart, where you actually are able to see the good lesson, no matter how traumatic could be the experience. We guide you to see that you learn something of it. And guess what? We changed that perspective completely. And now you're like, I got it. I know why I had to go through those experiences, because you must achieve something, So we kind of like empower you, really. Of course, it's more longer, the more require, from 8 to 10 sessions the most. But it's very, it's very recommendable. And I had surprises when people come for a QHT session and source tells them he or she needs to be doing the emotional release. I was like, are you supposed to be, are you helping them?
Yeah.
Yes. But if he or she doesn't change those thoughts, it'll continue to generate them or creating them again over and over. So she or he needs to change them. Okay. See, that's the powerful of your belief system. Even though you source explain you see you sometimes, it could be very powerful, but you're a very persistent person,
Yeah. Stubborn person. Yeah.
It takes time. It takes time sometimes. Some of us need a minute,
Yeah. The source explained that they need to do the emotional release. And this way you close those cycles and you move forward, because otherwise the universe is like a mirror yourself. It'll present you different bodies with essentially with the same conflict. And they go like, why? It's because you haven't overcome it.
Yeah.
But you don't realize it, because the ego it loves the easy ways, like, oh, it's them, opponent people, and you want to get out of the comfort zone. And the ego mind doesn't like to move from the comfort zone and their beliefs. It's hard to let go and to change. It forces you to change, really. So you really want to, deep dive into the rabbit hole. It's not easy. It could be painful, but guess what? It's very rewarding.
Maybe that's where that terrible, horrible story you shared at the beginning of this stream about meditation, maybe that's where that comes full circle, because you do have to face things that you didn't necessarily want to. And maybe that's where his thoughts of it being a negative thing comes into play. But that's only negative if you're not trying to fix the issues.
I can change it. It's very necessary. If you want a really healing, it's necessary for you. You have to change.
Yeah.
There's no other way around. You have to change, because the way you've been operated it doesn't work. Simple as that.
Yep.
And I find out the rough way too.
Yeah. And Keisha was saying something about if you don't listen, they'll keep telling you, or you'll stay the same. And that happens with readings all the time. It's like, I'll give a person a reading one week, and the next week they get the same message, and the next week they get the same message, and the next week it's like, well, you didn't listen the first 5 times it came through, so it's just going to keep happening until you do something about it.
Yeah,
I'm going to go to a different tarot reader and see what they have to say. And they get the same message.
It's forcing you to go inwards, to change yourself for yourself, to change that.
Yeah.
Well, we can bring that all the way back around, because that's one of the things about that article I was talking about the news earlier. And I wonder how much that had to play into it, about the fact that people are getting information from meditation that they don't, like, essentially shadow work that they don't want to have to deal with.
Exactly, because it's painful.
Yeah, it can absolutely be painful. Yeah.
But once overcome it, that's it. That's the hardest part, and then it changed it completely. Completely. for good.
Yep.
Yeah, having to confront yourself can be, we could get really philosophical.
I know,
there.
that's a whole nother that could be a whole other
It's
stream.
a whole other show there. I did want to ask one thing as we're going here, because we've been talking about QHHT for a while. It's been wonderful to have you on. I know that some people may be interested in what the process is to get a QHHT session.
Oh well, I have my protocol, like I said before. For some people that struggle to to trust, and those recommendations are from source. They're not coming from me. That I always use this amazing, beautiful tool, the source, and ask, why these people they didn't get under, and they go, okay, first of all, this is the protocol for my that I developed. You have to learn to meditate. So I teach them how to meditate. That's the pineal gland activation workshop. So everyone goes to the same protocol. You come first. I teach you how to meditate. I give you a recording of myself with the beautiful sounds of, you guys know the
singing bowl.
singing bowls of different frequencies, and that helps them to practice at least from 7 weeks to even up to 12 weeks, 5 times a week, 25 minutes to 30 minutes practice and meditation. So you delve into your inner peace. And then the second step, we have another session just for questions. I listen more to your story and I help to arrange your questions, and then the third day is for the hypnosis. When you're ready, achieve all those weeks self-meditating, going to your inner peace, trusting, let go, you're ready to go. And I had a really over 90% people goes on their sessions successfully, even into the higher self part, which is I consider the most important, because that's how I deliver the questions for you on the healing. So that's my protocol.
Does QHHT have to be in person?
Yes. Unfortunately, we cannot trust yet the internet or connections for some people, because just think about we're in the middle of the session and the guy goes up,
the person's like stuck out floating around as a cube somewhere, and like,
oh no.
You know what I mean? So unfortunately we cannot. And like I said, there's some that could be long sessions. The minute from the time a client open the door, step in the office, and walks out, it could be 6 to 8 hours.
Wow.
See, like I say, just for induction, it ranges from 2 to 4. I had a client 4 hours and a half. You cannot stop a session. It's not like the other time. It's like, okay, I want a half hour, max 1 hour. That's it. We stop. No.
You have to let it finish.
You have to deliver until higher selves tell you this is enough. I had clients who brought. One time I had a lady who brought 120 questions.
Holy moly.
Think about it, plus she saw like 2 past lives, and I had to make my inquirements, all those different questions that, that I had to bring together for her to understand that.
Yeah.
It was at least like 25, 30 questions on my own. And then her questions, by the time we reached like 30 something, source says, that's it. This is enough. I was like, okay, why? She had more. He goes, no, this is, we want her to understand and process this. And of course, the healing was important for her. Something was, she had like a heart condition that was causing by a medicine that was causing the side effect from the, I can't remember what was it from. Some of the conditions she had, and she had like 3 different medications, but sources no, we want her to rest, and that's all the information we want her to know. And I was like, okay, but she had,
she got 100 more questions. Yeah.
And he was like, okay, she can come back whenever she's ready, So see, so source, so yeah.
I guess you must have to have a comfortable chair if you're sitting there for 6 to 8 hours.
You know what? Time flies like this for me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it goes 5, 6, 7 hours. For me, it feels like only 2.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I see, the watch when people already experience up, 2, 3 past life, it could be 2 hours or hour and a half, and I feel good. Then I was like, okay, here's the questions, and then the conversation prolongs like 2-3 hours. I'm like, I don't feel them, because I'm so excited to get
You're
these
so
answers from them.
excited. Yeah.
So it's a thrill for me, really.
Yeah. That's exciting. And your
Yeah.
enthusiasm for it is, I
Yeah.
think, one of the things that just drew me into you, listening to you on the Light Gate. So this conversation has been fantastic, and we very much enjoyed having you on. And I feel like we could definitely have you on again in the future, because I had about 5 other things on my list we didn't get to. So
She had another 120 questions.
no, that wasn't that, baby. I didn't have the 100 questions.
We need another 2-hour session. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we have quantumbalance.center. Is there any other places that people can find you, Martin?
Well, they can find me on Instagram as Qhht Martin Rivera, same as Facebook. I even have 2 accounts in Facebook, which is just my name, as you guys read it, Martin Rivera. You can find me in Facebook. Most of the time I'm bilingual, so I share information in the 2 languages, but mostly in Instagram it's only in English, because it doesn't allow to explain more. But yeah, I do segments sometimes. I have my YouTube channel too. I'm not really active because I just have my newborn and it takes time away, So kind of like, but in the future, I'm willing to post more sessions that I have segments that clients allow me to do it. So in the future, I'm willing to do that. So stay tuned then.
Excellent. I know Jenny's looking forward to that. And we'll make sure for all those listening to the podcast later, I'll have those listed in the description below. So if you want to check out Martin Rivera, go down there, check it out, click on the links, and enjoy. Well, for everyone who's listening in the podcast, another time, another place, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening. If you can, please leave a review, a comment, tell us hello in the comments section, whatever. We very much appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time. And for everyone who is still here in the chat, we are going to go, even though Twitch was twitching this evening and I couldn't log in, we're going to see I can see if I can find anybody. Who do we have on that we can raid tonight?
Weird Paul, actually, Black Sheep Meat, Mystic Village.
I don't even know if we'll be able to raid because I can't. Can anybody else initiate a raid?
I might be able to.
Oh, I just got a code. It's finally working.
Okay.
Let me see. 304.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people streaming. If you want to raid somebody doing tarot, Kit's Chaos is doing tarot. Sheepy's playing Baldur's Gate. Mystic Village is doing ASMR. Weird Paul's doing music. Got some Yo Erica's friends on, Maxi Coon. Darth McGoat's on, playing something, fallen something or another.
We haven't rated Maxi Coon before. Give me 1 second and I'll spell that one for me.
It's Maxykun. It's one of Yo Erica's friends.
All right, yeah, we'll go say hi to one of Yo Erica's friends. Thank you, everybody in chat tonight. We appreciate you being here. It was nice to see you all again after we've had kind of a hectic summer schedule, so it was nice to be back on again. And we will see you all. We will see you all next week with Dr. Mona Sabani. That's going to be another great show, and we'll see you guys then. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all on the other side. Let's see. We got the raid going.
All right, bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay.
And we